How'd he talk me into this again?
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Untethered. I'm doing a little bit of spring maintenance today. A lot of you saw the video from here a while back about the couple that unfortunately dropped their camper. I did some up close shots of my fifth wheel hitch and got a few comments about how dirty it was. I think I actually apologized for it in the video. That's real RV life, but we're gonna address that today. As part of our spring cleaning and spring maintenance checklist, we're gonna get into our fifth wheel hitch today, do a little tear down, get all that old grease and all that old dirt off of it, get it shiny and cleaned up and ready for another year of travel. The reason it's important to do this is as you get grease and oil and things on your fifth wheel that are necessary to keep it properly lubricated, those things also attract dust when you're going down the highway. All that dust over time can cause your fifth wheel to get stuck, your locking mechanism to be hard to open or hard to shut. Since this is actually my first time doing this, I figured it'd be a great time to get a video together to show you guys how you can do it on your own rigs. So let's talk a little bit about what hitch we're using and what we're gonna do to get it ready for a new season. So let's talk about our hitch. I use a Super Glide hitch by Pull Rite, and I love it. It's got a 20,000 pound capacity, which is way overkill for this rig. We may want to go bigger, go smaller, go whatever. So I went ahead and got a hitch rated for 20,000 pounds to make sure I can handle any trailer that we throw at this truck. The important thing to remember about a Super Glide hitch is that you have to have a capture plate. And if you notice here, we have a capture plate that's installed on our fifth wheel pin box. It's a very simple plate. It slides up from the bottom. It has one bolt that goes in here to the top and hold it, and that's it. This plate locks onto our fifth wheel plate. When that happens, all the turning happens with the fifth wheel hitch itself, which I'll show you here in a second. With normal fifth wheel hitches that are fixed in place, meaning they don't slide, most of your turning happens between the bottom of your pin box and the plate, which makes it necessary for a whole lot of grease and stuff like that. I've been doing that on this one too, when I really didn't need to be. A lot of people suggested, after seeing my dirty hitch, for me to use a nylon disc between the fifth wheel plate and the pin box to avoid having to do all that excessive lubrication with grease. I actually tried that early on. It got stuck, it got jammed up, it was almost disastrous, and I actually found out from Pull Rite, it's in their owner's manual, to never use a nylon plate with these. There's just not enough room between the fifth wheel plate and the capture plate to take care of that. So I wanted to make sure if anybody's thinking about doing this, you will have to get a capture plate for your rig. They're under $100, or at least they were when I bought mine. I love the hitch. I love that I can make really tight turns and really tight backs with a short bed truck without doing any damage. Wouldn't trade it for a thing. But just remember, the capture plate's important. We're gonna go ahead and clean this up too while we're working on the hitch. Okay, so here's our Super Glide hitch. Aside from the capture plate, the latching mechanism and all that is the same as any other fifth wheel hitch, so there's nothing to be scared of here. The important thing to remember is that you want to keep your bed space clear of any obstructions, because this hitch is going to turn with the trailer. You'll notice when I grab a hold of the release bar and turn the fifth wheel, it actually slides backwards as you turn. It'll actually go into these side slots here and go all the way back when you're in a tight turn, like 180 degrees. And that's important because as the hitch slides backwards, you're creating more distance between the front of your fifth wheel trailer and the back of your truck. When the trailer starts to turn on the pin box, it slides all the way back, it slides all the way up. There's no need to get out and unlatch anything. There's no extra safety measures you have to take. It works completely on its own, and the only way you're even gonna know that it's doing it is you might hear it if you have your windows down with the click or a clank when it goes from one end to the other. So that's it, pretty simple. Let's take this thing apart and see just how nasty it is on the back of this fifth wheel. So to take this thing off, we're just gonna pull these pins out on both sides. Not too bad, not as bad as I thought it'd be. So we're just gonna get in here with some brake cleaner and some rags and a little bit of elbow grease, no pun intended, and get all this cleaned up, slap it back together. Man, this looks so much better. As it turns out, I was doing it wrong the whole time. I actually went back and looked at my owner's manual, which I should have done in the first place. This thing doesn't call for any grease. They specifically call for a WD-40 on all the latching mechanisms and the springs and the way tubes.
We should have known he was doing it wrong.
I just did it from all these years dealing with tractor trailers and commercial vehicles, and fifth wheels get slopped in grease. So I just assumed that's what we did here. Should have read my owner's manual, so I was doing it wrong. So let's get this thing greased up with WD-40. We're gonna grease the way tubes, set this thing back on, lock and load. So while we're in here, a couple things we want to check. Obviously, I went around and checked all the bolts for tightness and forgot to turn the camera on. It is an important thing to do just to make sure that everything's tight and there's no excessive play anywhere. We want to make sure right here where our horn's set on our fifth wheel plate that there's not any kind of excessive wear, any cracking or anything like that. And since we don't have to use grease anymore, we're just going to hit these with WD-40. The last thing we're going to do before we put the fifth wheel plate back on is grease these way tubes. These are what the mechanism slides on when it goes forward and back. So we're going to give these a nice squirt with WD-40 as per our owner's manual recommendations. No grease. I can see when I slid it just now, there's probably still some old grease up under here, but that's not going to hurt anything. I'm going to give this a quick squirt of WD-40 and we're going to put this thing back together and call it a day. All right, everybody, so we're all said and done here. We got the fifth wheel hitch maintenance done. Owner's manual does recommend to spray the fifth wheel plate and the way tubes periodically between trips, which I have been doing on the way tubes, but I've been adding some grease to it, which I wasn't supposed to do. So again, I did it wrong. I'll own it. Thank you guys so much for the comments on the camper drop video, recommending different things to manage our horrific grease situation, which is now handled. So because of you guys, I actually went out and did a little research and found out a better way and a correct way to do things. So keep the comments coming. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys on the next video.